As parties look forward to their election prospects and those invested try to divine which way things will go, some research is giving shape to that thinking. A recent poll, touted as the largest yet of voter sentiment, states that the governing ANC is losing popularity and would likely bag only 39% of the votes if elections were held tomorrow. Professor David Everett with the Wits School of Governance conducted the survey with his team and joins me now. Good evening and welcome to the program. First, let's talk about the backstory to the survey commissioned by a new political movement, Change Starts Now, because our viewers will say, how can we trust the results of a study commissioned by one of the players in the game? How do you respond?
A fair question. I think the only, and I think that's a fair question to ask of any poll put out by a political party. This one is unique in that they commissioned the poll before they launched their party. So I think they launched in our very last couple of days of fieldwork. So the survey, by definition, had almost nothing to ask about Change Starts Now because they didn't exist and voters wouldn't know about them. And so what we've tried to do is to present the data so that voters, the voting public, whether they're registered or not, can have a look at how the rest of the voters feel and be better informed about what's going on.
So just a quick follow-up to that, why do they want it done then?
To understand, I mean, as a small party trying to firstly launch and get a presence and then know how to maneuver, you really do need your own data so that you can cross-tabulate what the variables you want that you think matter to you. So if they were relying on polls released by other agencies or worse, other political parties, you never know what people have done in terms of sampling, in terms of field work. How was this conducted? Have people imputed, which means if you tell me you refuse to tell me which party you're going to vote for, I decide for you by modeling you against other voters, and I impute that you will vote for X or Y party. There are all of these variables that get in the way. And Change Starts Now wanted to say, how on earth do we play this game? What do we do, and what is the lay of the land? And that's what we did.
All right. So it made, and given then, and you would say, as you started, well, you said there in the beginning, this is independent. This is not with the idea of getting something to fit in a particular thing. It was just, to go out there and to honestly, be a mirror for the people, the 9,000 respondents that you used to get this information. So you've got a whole lot of information. Sketch the big players and their projected fortunes. You talk about the ANC, the DA and the EFF. Very interesting, some of the findings that you make.
Let me just say that clearly if you are commissioned by a party, they can also ask you to ask what they want. So we did ask if anyone had ever heard of Roger Jardine, and already he had a 50% name recognition and so on. So it's not entirely free of them. What were the main findings? Firstly, as every other poll is finding, the ANC is declining and declining fast. We have them at 39. On a very good day with the following wind going downhill, they may push that to 42. That's kind of the band in which they're fighting, but that's before their campaign starts, and that would be true of every party. The problem really that I think is facing us as a voting public is that, and the article that I wrote tried to explain this, is that there's nothing new coming through that is shaking up the electoral landscape. So the DA comes in with about 1/5 of the votes. The EFF comes in with about 1/6 of the votes. The IFP is around 4%. The new small parties are either 1% or not there. And so it's you have this notion of a kind of slowly declining ANC. These two who've been around quite a while now, the EFF and the DA, neither is able to break through to become a real powerful national force. So the most interesting places are going to be the provinces, because in a number of those provinces, the ANC has either lost control or is very much a minority party.
It's quite interesting, as you say, the DA and the EFF sort of kind of tracking each other, with the DA at 19, I think you'd put it, and the EFF at around 16%, winning just around 1/5 of the vote or so. How dramatically do things tend to change? I mean, I've been a journalist for quite a while, and you see a lot of predictions about the ANC's fortunes in an upcoming elections, not all of them favorable, and somehow it managing to find its resilience at the 11th hour and then turn those numbers around. What room for movement typically in watching these kinds of things and making these projections are there for for a market change even, or something to go almost against what a survey can project?
Well, I mean, a survey is a snapshot in time, so we don't make any claims to, having incredible insights into what will happen in the future. And I don't think any of the parties have really begun campaigning. They're all still launching their manifestos and all that stuff. So clearly things will be able to change. But the trends that we have identified that are in line with every other survey, whether it's a pollster or just a general attitude survey, suggest that there isn't really, there's certainly room. I mean, anyone can make a sudden jump, but there's no reason to suspect that they will, because none of them has offered anything that has excited the imagination of the voters. And the fact that just less than half of all potential voters have not bothered to register tells you how flat and dull the political parties are, because they are not exciting potential voters to register and then vote. And people say, oh, voter apathy, vote. Don't blame the voters. Blame the political parties. They are failing to ignite our imagination. And so we're stuck with the same old, and fewer people can be bothered to vote for them because we've been here before. So I'd be certainly 1 or 2 percentage points, but nothing more dramatic than that in any circumstance.
Yeah, you remind me of a stand-up sketch of George Carlin, where he talks about, don't blame the politicians, who are the people that put them in power. Interesting thing to go watch, totally irrelevant to this interview. But what I want to ask is, with the proliferation of a whole bunch of new parties, how does that threaten, well, I don't know, maybe threaten is not the right word, how does that enrich the diversity of what's available on the table? Or does it, is it actually a counterintuitive thing in terms of making sure that change happens and you get enough people who believe something that you don't have to kind of like try to canvass later?
I mean, I think 2 things are going to happen to the small parties. So one is we have a whole lot of kind of quite long-standing small parties, UDM, COPE, GOOD, etc. I think many of them may die. They really are not attracting votes. They're not even at the 1% level in our poll. So I really think they've lost their allure, and you can expect the dying off of a number of them. I think a number of the smaller parties that have been launched, I mean, there's Change Starts Now, there's Rise, there's Build on South Africa, there's a range of them. Currently, they are battling for space, and they're battling to persuade people. Firstly, they're not necessarily well known. Their leaders are not well known. Musi Maimane has probably got the best name recognition out of, in the sense of having been a political leader. Roger Jardine, interestingly, has 1 in 2 name recognition, despite having not been active before. So they're kind of making a noise, but they're not yet in any way shaking the tree. And again, there has to be a much more dramatic breakthrough with a much more exciting offering. And ultimately, and 91% of our sample said, you have got to get young people into politics. Yeah. And I think every party is failing to get young people into politics. And when they do, it's, an entity like Rise, I think, has worked really hard to get youth in, but they've got nothing to offer them. So, a youthful cabinet minister is someone who's in their 40s.
Well, we're going to have to get Songezo Zibi to respond to the last comment you made there, David. But we will also reach out, and our team is reaching out to the ANC as well to see what their response is to, the information and the results.
I'm sure it will be flattering, whatever it is.
Listen, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate your time. Professor David Everett is with the Wits School of Governance. Again, we'll continue to talk about politics as we await the announcement of an election result, and then it happens.